You ever get hit by the past so hard you almost drop what's in your hands? Yeah, that happened. It was supposed to be just another shift, just another night serving the rich and oblivious at the Blackwell mansion. But there I was, stuck in a private hallway, staring at a gold-framed photo of a little girl in a pink dress with the same wild curls I fight every morning. My face, age 4, right there on the wall of Chicago's wealthiest family, like some forgotten keepsake. And let me tell you, for a second I thought maybe I was losing my mind. My name's Jasmine Mitchell, 24, part-time waitress, part-time survivor, full-time expert at pretending not to see what hurts. But this was impossible. That I'd grown up bouncing through foster homes. Those file-thick gaps in my life never really filled by caseworkers and faded birth records. All I ever got were vague stories about fires, difficult circumstances, and the unspoken promise that nobody was coming back for me. Never in a million years did I think the truth would be hanging in a billionaire's hallway, under crystal lights I wasn't even supposed to dust. Before I could process it, the security guard barked at me. Employees aren't allowed in this wing. And I snapped back to the moment, lied about looking for the bathroom, heart pounding like it wanted to break out of my chest. But I made sure to burn that photo into my brain before I walked away, because that face, my face, was the key to something big, and I was going to find out what. Out in the ballroom, Richard Blackwell was working the crowd in his tuxedo, playing the patron saint of lost kids, talking up his foundation for underprivileged children, accepting applause like he invented compassion. What a joke, right? Guy gives speeches about abandoned families with a picture of his own missing daughter hanging in the house. Just another trophy in his private collection. I watched him closely. There was something rehearsed in his smiles, a flicker of guilt that slipped out when he talked about tragedy. Life sometimes forces us to make impossible choices, he told the crowd, voice dripping with manufactured regret. Losing a daughter changes a man forever. Yeah, losing or throwing away. Right then and there I decided, if he was my father, if that man had left me to rot so he could live like a saint, I was going to expose him for everything he'd ever done. And while the room clapped for their hero, nobody noticed me. Nobody ever does. But I smiled for the first time all night. And it wasn't the smile of a girl meeting her long-lost dad. It was the smile of somebody who'd just spotted a crack in the armor. I couldn't sleep after that. Couldn't stop seeing the little girl me in that pink dress every time I closed my eyes. I needed answers. But where do you even start when your missing father is basically Chicago royalty? That's when I remembered Marcus, the bartender who worked every high society gig worth a damn. Marcus is one of those guys who's heard it all. If anyone knew Blackwell skeletons, it was him. When I mentioned the name, Marcus almost choked on his coffee, looked me dead in the eye, said, "Girl, you don't mess with that man. He's got eyes and ears everywhere." But I pressed. "Why?" Marcus glanced around to make sure we were alone, then told me the old rumors. Richard's first wife died in a suspicious accident when their little girl was 4. Right after, Richard got a huge life insurance payout, and the girl just disappeared, never to be heard from again. He talks a big game about orphans, but nothing cleans up a conscience like a charity with your name on the front, Marcus said, shaking his head. That was all I needed. That night, I made a bunch of fake accounts, started digging. Richard remarried 3 times after his first wife's death, always to much younger women, always with prenups that left them nothing but a thank you note. None of the marriages lasted more than 2 years. I even found old articles about my mom, Helena Blackwell, a child rights activist, the kind of woman who'd go to war with broken systems. Turns out, the last thing she did before she died was launch an investigation into crooked adoption agencies. 2 weeks after that, she was dead, and Richard had inherited everything. How convenient, right? I started piecing it all together. My mom digging into adoption scams, her accident, Richard's sudden windfall, my vanishing act. I needed more, though, and I knew just who to ask. Margaret Santos, a retired PI who lived on double-shot cappuccinos at the cafe where I worked mornings. I told her everything, promised to clean her house or walk her dogs, whatever it took. She just grinned. Been a while since I had a case with real teeth, she said, and started digging. A few days later, she came back with a folder that felt heavier than it looked. Your dad didn't just leave you, Margaret said, sliding the pages across the table. He forged documents saying you died in the same accident as your mom. My breath stopped. There was a fake death certificate, insurance payouts. He'd even collected money for my death, $500,000, then spun the tragedy into a charity empire. There was more. Helena had hired her own PI before she died, convinced Richard was selling kids through illegal adoptions. Both the investigator and my mom died within weeks. Margaret even found hospital records showing my mom was alive 2 hours after the crash, telling a nurse, "Protect my daughter from him." Yeah, that hit like a truck, but Richard thought I was gone for good. That was my advantage. He was living the high life, still telling his tragic story at gala fundraisers, still pretending he cared about kids he'd never meet. So I planned my own entrance. The next Blackwell Foundation Gala, a fundraiser for orphans. The irony was thick enough to choke on. I signed up to work the event. The night of the gala, Richard's on stage, giving his usual speech about the pain of losing a daughter. The crowd eats it up. I weave through with my tray, pretending to smile, heart pounding with every step. Then I do the unthinkable, step onto the stage, take the mic from his assistant, and ask, "Mr. Blackwell, can I ask you about your daughter?" Silence. He tries to brush me off, but I don't budge. "Maybe you'd like to explain how your daughter didn't die in that accident, how you abandoned her after her mother's murder, how you collected insurance money and built this whole charity on her grave." People start murmuring. Richard's face goes pale as flour. "You can't be," he whispers. "Jasmine Helena Mitchell. Or should I say Blackwell? Your daughter, the one you declared dead." I pull out the paperwork, show the crowd, the fake certificates, the life insurance records, my mom's autopsy report. I even put up the photo from the mansion, big as life, on the screen behind us, with my childhood scrawl, "To the best dad in the world, I love you, Jasmine." He tries to recover, but it's over. I tell the press about the files I just emailed them, his confessions to his lawyer, his schemes, the trail of money. Cameras flash. People leave in droves, donors calling to cancel on the spot. "You planned this," he says, staring at me like I'm a ghost. Of course I did. You taught me revenge is best served cold. 20 years cold. Then I dropped the last bomb. The FBI's waiting outside. My evidence is more than enough. Richard barely gets a word out before he's cuffed and led off stage. Finally realizing the daughter he thought was gone just ruined everything he'd built on our graves. You want a happy ending? Well, that's where things get complicated. Months later, I'm running the foundation in my mother's name, using Richard's seized millions to actually help kids, new orphanages, scholarships, families reunited. My face is in magazines, my story headlining morning shows. Margaret's now my right hand. Marcus organizes our events, and for the first time I know what a real family feels like. In the fallout, Richard's old friend Sue, his ex-wives write exposés, and even his favorite golf club scrubs his name from the record books. And I find real family, too. My mom's sister Sarah, who never gave up looking for me. Turns out, the investigation my mom started ends up taking down a whole network of crooked agencies. Dozens arrested, hundreds of kids finally safe. Her fight wasn't for nothing that I get letters every week now, from kids we've helped, parents we've reunited, a girl starting med school, a boy dreaming of law. And sometimes, I still get letters from Richard. I don't read them. I don't need to. Forgiveness isn't a right you buy with regret. Not for what he did, but I don't live in anger. Not anymore. Anderson Cooper once asked me if I hated my father. I told him. He tried to erase me, but all he did was give me a blank page. I wrote my own story. The truth is, the best revenge was never just exposing him. It was building what he only pretended to care about. Real change, real love, real justice. Last week, I visited my mom's grave with Sarah, new pink marble stone, flowers, and the words, "Her daughter finished the mission." I left knowing she'd be proud. That's the real victory. Not the headlines or the money, but the chance to be the light for kids still stuck where I once was, waiting for someone to remember their name. If you felt that, if you believe in justice, in family, in rewriting your own story, I want to hear what you think. What's justice mean to you? Can people like Richard ever really change? Or do we just have to build something better and leave them behind? Drop your thoughts below. You never know who needs to hear your voice next.